Hi everyone, my name is Evie. What I have for you guys today is going to be a cream cheese flan. In my channel, I also have a pumpkin one, banana one, coconut one, and a coffee one. So feel free to go through my channel and check those out. But for today, it's going to be the cream cheese flan. So stay tuned for the ingredients. Okay, my loves, the first ingredient are going to be 5 eggs. Make sure that these eggs are room temperature. Second ingredient is going to be the cream cheese of your choice, also room temperature. We're going to use 2 tablespoons of vanilla, 1 can of evaporated milk, and 1 can of condensed milk. And then we also are going to use 1 cup of sugar so that we can make our caramel. So the first thing we're going to do is make the caramel right before we put everything in the blender. Of course, you will also need the blender. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I am adding the cup of sugar. And next we're going to be adding a 4th cup of water. This is the one thing I left out in the ingredients because of course I forgot. That never fails. So let me explain the water. If you want, you don't have to add water, but you would have to be by your sugar or caramel constantly moving it around so that it doesn't burn. You would have to constantly be moving it. But if you add the 1/4 cup of water, it'll start melting the sugar right away, and you just put a lid on it. You have it on medium low, and you don't have to be over the sugar mixing and mixing. You would just come and check it like every 5 minutes until your desired color of caramel. Remember, you also don't want your caramel to be too brown because the sugar gets bitter and it's going to make the flan taste bitter and it'll go to waste. It's not going to be good. So we want like an amber color. So we're just going to put a lid on this and then we're just going to leave it there to cook. What I also wanted to say is I am using a 10-inch pan. I could have also melted the sugar there or made the caramel there, but it's not a smooth texture, so I prefer to do it on the small little pot. So now I have put my 5 eggs inside the blender. Remember, the cream cheese and the eggs both have to be room temperature. And yeah, and like I said, your choice of cream cheese. This time I have to Philadelphia. I really love it. I gotta tell you, this flan came out so smooth and silky. It was delicious. Of course, I didn't open the packages. I always try to make the videos a little less longer, but it never happens. And because I left the cream cheese room temperature, it slides right out of the package. It was very easy. See? Nice and empty. Then we're going to add our 14 ounces of condensed milk. I got the Walmart brand. It's just as delicious as the original. And the evaporated one is also Walmart brand, like the Great Value brand. It tastes just like the Carnation. You're just paying like half of the price of it. So we're just putting this in here and we're going to be adding our milk soon. I have no idea what I'm saying here in Spanish, guys. No idea. But you get the gist of it. Empty out as much as you can. Oh, I remember what I'm saying here. I'm saying how delicious these flans are, and I make them pretty much often because our family likes it. Here I'm doing the carnation milk. But what I was also wanting to say, health-wise, is terrible. You're adding a whole can of condensed milk and making caramel out of a whole cup of sugar. So it is a lot of sugar. But you know what? It's delicious. And I like the flavor of vanilla a lot. So instead of adding 1 teaspoon, I am going to add 2 teaspoons. Like I said, it turned out delicious. So for those of you who didn't know, 1 cup of that you use for your vanilla is also a teaspoon. So for those who didn't know that measurement, there it is. And I am adding 2 of them. So we're just gonna put a lid on this. My blender blends automatically for 2 minutes straight. So while this is blending, I will go check on my caramel. Here it is. It's starting to take color. It's not a lot though. So we're just gonna put a lid back on it again and check on it once our ingredients are already blended. I don't know what I keep saying here, but it's probably the same thing because that's the advice I was giving in Spanish. Okay, one more time, checking on it. And this is the color that I want for our caramel. It's a nice, beautiful caramel amber color. That's the perfect color for it. Like I said, you don't want it to go too far because it'll make your caramel and your flan bitter. Here I am adding it. Make sure you guys don't touch this. I mean, if it spills somewhere, don't try to grab it with your fingers or anything because this will bust out a blister. That's how hot this caramel is. And if you're wondering what that middle section is, white, it's a little bit of the sugar that dried around the edges, and I just grabbed it and put it in there. Of course, it's going to melt once you make the once you start baking your flan. So you gotta remember the pan will also turn really hot. The more higher you spread this caramel, which you are supposed to spread it up a little higher so it doesn't stick, the higher you go with it, the hotter the baking pan's gonna be. So yeah, just be super careful. What I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna let this sit here for about 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, I'm gonna go put this in my freezer for about 5 minutes, okay? It needs to get hard before I start pouring the stuff in there. And once it gets hard, you're gonna start hearing, well, you won't hear it because it's in the original video, which is in Spanish, but if you hear cracking sounds, that's normal, especially when you pour the flan into the caramel. You're going to hear all that popping. What I wanted to show you was this big old lasagna pan. I know it looks terrible, but this is the only pan I use to make my flan. And you can tell because you can see where I measure my water. And this is the only thing I use this pan for. So don't think I use it for anything else. I just make all my flanes in here. And sometimes I've made up to 2 in the same pan. So what I wanted to say was if you don't have this, you can use something smaller, but you got to make sure it's big enough to fit your pan where the flan is. And you are able to put water all the way mid to the pan where the flan is. Okay, so my pan is out of the freezer. Everything is nice and cold. You can see the cracking around in the sugar, in the caramel. You won't be able to hear, like I said, the popping sound, but it is popping. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna take our mixture, and it has a certain amount of bubbles on top, and with your spatula or a spoon or something, you want to break those down a little bit so it's not so frothy. So I'm just using my spatula to do that, and then we're just gonna pour it slowly. And when you pour this, guys, it makes such beautiful popping sound. I don't know about you guys, but I like the cracking sound. It sounds like when you're sitting in front of a fire. That's perfect. So we're just adding a whole thing slowly. And then what I like to do is put 2 pieces of aluminum foil on this. I use 2 because I just take a whole piece of it off when I'm checking the flan. And then I just take it straight to my oven like that. And once it's in the oven, that's when I add my water. Like I said, I'm adding my aluminum foil. I wanted to tell you that my pan has a little ledge on it. And I like to duck the, or fold the aluminum foil under it. I'm just making sure that no water gets into the flan. So please be careful when you do this part and make sure you cover the bottom really well. Remember that you will be adding the water to the halfway mark of your pan. Guys, what I wanted to tell you, like always, I always forget something. What I wanted to tell you was while you were blending all your ingredients and cooking your caramel on the stovetop, turn your oven on to 350 and make sure that your rack is right in the center. Not higher, not lower. We want it to be perfect. And what I wanted to tell you is I put water in this big old bowl and pour it because I don't want to be pouring it cup by cup or, a little bit at a time. So I take a dish or a bowl that's big enough and that's flexible that I can fold a little bit and make sure I put the water all the way to the halfway mark. And which I know where mine is because I've made them so many times that my my lasagna pan has the watermarks. So yeah, we're putting this in here. And be careful pushing this back. Remember, your flan is very liquidy now. So make sure you just push it in there carefully. And then we're just going to close up our oven. And we will come back. I'm putting a timer for 1 hour. We'll be back in 1 hour to check it. And let's see what it's looking like. What I wanted to say is, I know a lot of oven varies. I put it for an hour because that's the checking mark for me. But my flan actually took 1 hour and 20 minutes. I will show you in a little bit here when I check it so that you can see that it's still raw. But also what I wanted to tell you was make sure you have a rack ready to put your flan because that's going to be super hot. If you don't have a rack, put it on anything silicone that you have, or you can also use a piece of wood, or your cutter where you chop your meats and stuff. If it's wood, you could put it on that. What I also wanted to tell you was that I let my flan sit out on the counter for 1 hour uncovered. Then I put the aluminum foil back on. Then I put it in my freezer for 1 hour. And that was perfect. It wasn't warm. It was nice and cold, like refrigerated, but it wasn't frozen. So that was perfect if you wanted to eat it right away. So here I am checking for the first time at the 60-minute mark, which is when my timer beeped. And I am checking it. And please be careful doing this because that water in there is super hot. What I wanted to tell you was make sure your water is hot when you first put it in your lasagna pan or wherever you are going to add water, because you don't want to start off with cold water. It's going to take longer to heat up the water. See, it's still raw here. So I added another 20 minutes and the 20 minutes is the perfect timing. So we're going to put our foil back on and put it back on for another 20 minutes. But like I was saying, make sure you start off with hot water because if it's cold water, it's going to take time to warm up the water to then start cooking the flan. It just doesn't make sense. So just put really hot water. My tap water comes out really hot that you can see steam. But if you don't have really hot water like that, you can boil your water. Boil at least 8 cups. So here my flan, after 20 minutes, it is done. And you see how I move it and it jiggles a little bit? That is perfectly fine because as it cools, it starts to set. You can already see the, what I wanted to show you was, I started taking the water out with a ladle from the oven so that it wouldn't be so heavy for me to carry out here or even get burned. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take the flan out of here very carefully. I'm going to set it to the side while I empty out this big old pan of water. Like I said, just be super careful. And now put your flan on the rack so it can have air flowing through the bottom to cool off even faster. As you can see, the flan is already unsticking from the pan. So I'm just going to take a very thin knife. This is like a little steak knife, but they're very thin. And I'm just going to go all the way around, make sure it gets unstuck. And then when you move it, you can see the whole flan move. That means it's unstuck from the whole thing. So like I said, we're going to leave it here for a full hour. Don't do nothing to it and don't cover it up. Just leave it as is, fully uncovered. Afterwards, I'm going to put the aluminum foil back on. Then I'm going to put it in my freezer for 1 hour. That's all it's going to take. If you want to take your time doing this, you could leave it overnight in the fridge, not the freezer. But for me, I'm going to put it in the freezer because I want fast results. And this is the same pizza pan that I made the pizza in, and it's bigger than the flan, than the cake pan. So make sure you get something that's bigger than it because once you flip it over, you're going to have a lot of caramel. So make sure that you do have something bigger than the pan. Okay, guys, so here it is. My flan just got out of the freezer, and it is the perfect timing so that it can be perfect. I don't know where I lost the clip, where I turned it over, molded it, but this is what I have for you guys. You still have a little bit of syrup there or caramel. It is perfect. Look how perfect this is. So what we're going to do now, we're going to cut it up. I like to cut mine in half, well, because the other half is going for Lisi and Gogi. You guys know Titi Lisi. So they're getting half of that and we're getting half. So I like to cut my half and then half and half. I will get 4 pieces. So what I wanted to say was every time you make a cut, please clean off your knife so that you don't get none of the residue on top of the flan. You want it to look pretty and neat. And as you can see, I have a can of whipped cream next to me and the cherries that were left over from our pineapple upside down cake. So I'm just going to use that for decoration. And of course, I'm going to eat it because I love those things. So just be careful now when you grab your piece. You don't want it to crack or break on you. I got to tell you, look at my little tip. It broke off on me, but that's okay. It still looks really good. Look at this. Delicious. I love it. And if you guys want a little bit more of caramel, just grab a spoon and just drizzle a little bit on top. It doesn't take much because remember, this is a very sweet dessert. It's not the kind of sweet that bothers you when you eat it because it's nice and cold, so you don't feel it so much. And then here I am. Of course, the fat girl in me likes the whipped cream. I love it. And there goes the napkin. A little bit of, or as much cherries as you like, but I just want the one. I just want it to look cute, you know. So what we're going to do now, we're definitely going to give this a try. But look how it looks. It looks so glassy that you could see the reflection of the whipped cream right on the flan. Here we are. This is going to be the best part of the video, guys. The tasting. Look at that. Nice and smooth. It's not dry like a cheesecake, just so you know. It's very creamy and smooth. Delicious. Watch. I'm ready to go grab a piece as I am doing a voiceover on this. It is delicious, guys. I hope you try this recipe. And I know some of you have already tried the recipe I already have on my channel. But the only difference there was that I added 4 eggs. And in this recipe, I added 5. So I think this is a better version. I think you get a little bit more and I get a little bit more of the creaminess. So guys, I hope you like this video. I hope you give it a like. I hope you guys share. Leave me a comment if you have questions. If you don't have questions, guys, I'm just going to give you a heart on your comment. I'm only going to answer those with questions because there's a lot of comments sometimes. But just make sure, just be sure that I do read every single one of them. So take care and God bless, my love.